Good morning, I am Devisena. In this lecture, we are going to discuss about inductive coupling in series and parallel. This topic is present in the subject circuit analysis. Inductive coupling in series and parallel circuits. When two inductants having self-inductance L1 and L2 are coupled in series, mutual inductance M exists between them. Two kinds of series connection are possible as follows. They are series aiding circuit and series opposing circuit. When two inductants having self-inductance L1 and L2 are coupled in parallel, we have two kinds of connections as follows. Parallel aiding circuits and parallel opposing circuits. Dot conventions or dot rules. The sign of mutually induced voltage depends on the direction of the winding of the coils. But it is very inconvenient to supply the information about the winding direction of the coils. Hence, dot conventions are used for purpose of indicating direction of winding. If a current enters a dot in one coil, then mutually induced voltage in other coil is positive at the dotted end. If a current leaves a dot in one coil, then mutually induced voltage in other coil is negative at the dotted end. Inductive coupling series aiding circuit. This is the circuit for series aiding circuit in inductive coupling. In this circuit, we are having two coils L1 and L2. If you visualize the circuit means you have two dots. The dots are present in the coils L1 and L2. These dots are present here in the beginning side. That is, the indication of the dot gives the information about whether the current is leaving to the circuit or entering to the circuit. In this connection, two coils are connected in series such that their induced fluxes or voltages are additive in nature. Here, currents I1 and I2 is nothing but current I, which is entering dots for both coils. This is indicated in this diagram. Self-induced voltage in coil 1 is equal to V1, that is equal to minus L1 di by dt. Self-induced voltage in coil 2 is equal to V2. Its value is equal to minus L2 di by dt. Mutually induced voltage in coil 1 due to change in current in coil 2 is equal to V1 dash. Its value is V1 dash is equal to minus capital M di by dt. Mutually induced voltage in coil 2 due to change in current in coil 1 is equal to V2 dash. Its value is V2 dash is equal to minus M di by dt. Total induced voltage is equal to V1 plus V2 plus V1 dash plus V2 dash, that is equal to minus of L1 di by dt plus L2 di by dt plus M di by dt plus M di by dt. Here all these values are having minus sign, so I have taken minus as a common in this equation. That is equal to minus of L1 plus L2 plus 2M di by dt. If capital L is equivalent inductance across terminals A to B, then total induced voltage in single inductance would be equal to minus L equivalent di by dt. Comparing to two voltages, L equivalent is equal to L1 plus L2 plus 2M. Now we see inductive coupling series opposing circuit. This is the diagram of a inductive coupling series opposing circuit. In this connection, two coils are connected in such a way that induced fluxes or voltages are of opposite polarities. Here, currents I1 and I2 is the same series current I, which is entering dot for coil 1 and leaving dot for coil 2. This entering dot is indicated in coil L1 and leaving dot is indicated at coil 2 in this figure. Self-induced voltage in coil 1 is equal to V1, that is equal to minus L1 di by dt. Self-induced voltage in coil 2 is equal to V2, that is equal to minus L2 di by dt. Mutually induced voltage in coil 1 due to change in current in coil 2 is equal to V1 dash. That is V1 dash is equal to M di by dt. Mutually induced voltage in coil 2 due to change in current in coil 1 is equal to V2 dash. Its value is V2 dash is equal to plus M di by dt. Total induced voltage is equal to V1 plus V2 plus V1 dash plus V2 dash, that is equal to minus L1 di by dt. This is the value of V1 minus L2 di by dt. This is the value of V2 plus M di by dt. This is the value of V1 dash plus M di by dt. This is the value of V2 dash. That is equal to minus, if we take that as a common means, we get minus open bracket L1 plus L2 minus 2M close the bracket di by dt. If capital L is equivalent inductance across terminals A and B, then total induced voltage in single inductance would be equal to minus L equivalent di by dt. Comparing two voltages, we get L equivalent is equal to L1 plus L2 minus 2M. Now we see the inductive coupling parallel aiding circuit. Consider parallel coupling of two inductors as shown in figure. This is the representation of inductive coupling parallel aiding circuit. Here, two inductors L1 and L2 is connected parallel to each other. For the L1, current I1 is flowing, and for the L2, current I2 is flowing. In this diagram, the dots are represented at the entering end of the current for both the coils. This is indicated. Applying Kirchoff's voltage law to both loops, we get minus j omega L1 I1 minus j omega capital M I2 plus V is equal to 0. This is for loop 1. And minus j omega L2 I2 minus j omega capital M I1 plus V is equal to 0. This is for loop 2. That is V is equal to j omega L1 I1 plus j omega capital M I2. Consider this as equation 1, and V is equal to j omega L2 I2 plus j omega capital M I1. Consider this as equation 2. We have j omega L1 I1 plus j omega capital M I2, that is equal to j omega L2 I2 plus j omega capital M I1. That is, here we have equated equation 1 and equation 2. We know that the value of I is equal to I1 plus I2. From this, I2 value is equal to I minus I1. Putting the value of I2 is equal to I minus I1 in j omega L1 plus I1 plus j omega capital M I2 is equal to j omega L2 I2 plus j omega capital M L I1. We get, that is, we have substituted the value of I2 in this equation. J omega L1 I1 plus j omega capital M into I minus I1, that is equal to j omega L2 into I minus I1 plus j omega M I1. If you simplify this equation, means we get j omega I1 as common into open bracket L1 plus L2 minus 2M close the bracket, that is equal to j omega I open bracket L2 minus 2M close the bracket. That is, I1 is equal to L2 minus 2M divided by L1 plus L2 minus 2M into the whole into I. Similarly, I2 is equal to L1 minus 2M divided by L1 plus L2 minus 2M the whole into I. That is, the value of I2 is obtained if we substitute that I1 is equal to I minus I2. Putting the values of I1 and I2 in equation 1, we get, this is equation 1. Equation 1 is V is equal to j omega L1 I1 plus j omega capital M I2. In this equation, we are going to substitute the value of I1 and I2 which we obtained earlier. We get V is equal to j omega open bracket L1 into open bracket L2 minus 2M close bracket divided by L1 plus L2 minus 2M plus capital M into L1 minus 2M divided by L1 plus L2 minus 2M the whole close bracket into I. That is, V is equal to j omega open bracket L1 L2 minus capital M L1 plus capital M L1 plus M square the whole divided by L1 plus L2 minus 2M the whole close bracket into I. That is, V is equal to j omega open bracket L1 L2 plus capital M square the whole divided by L1 plus L2 minus 2M close the bracket into I. Consider this as equation 3. If capital L is effective inductance of parallel combination, then V is equal to j omega L equivalent into I. Consider this as equation 4. Then comparing equation 3 and 4, we get L equivalent is equal to L1 L2 plus capital M square divided by L1 plus L2 minus 2M. Now we see inductive coupling parallel opposing circuit. Consider two inductors connected in parallel as shown in figure below. Here is a representation of inductive coupling parallel opposing circuit. If you look at this diagram, means for the coil L1, the dot is present where the current I1 is entering into the circuit. But if you look at this coil L2, means the dot is present where the current I2 is leaving the circuit. Applying Kirchoff's voltage law to both loops, we get minus j omega L1 I1 plus j omega capital M I2 plus V is equal to 0. Minus j omega L2 I2 plus j omega capital M I1 plus V is equal to 0. That is j omega L1 I1 minus j omega capital M I2 is equal to V. Consider this as equation 5. J omega L2 I2 minus j omega capital M I1 is equal to V. Consider this as equation 6. We have j omega L1 I1 minus j omega capital M I2 is equal to j omega L2 I2 minus j omega capital M I1. That is, we have equated equation 5 and equation 6 here. We know that the value of I is equal to I1 plus I2. That is, I2 is equal to I minus I1. Putting the values of I1 in equation 5 and I2 in equation 6, we get it. This is equation 5. J omega L1 I1 minus j omega capital M I2 is equal to V. And this is equation 6. J omega L2 I2 minus j omega capital M I1 is equal to V. This is equation 6. In these equations, we are going to substitute the values of I1 and I2. First, we substitute for I1. We have V is equal to j omega, open the bracket, L1, open the bracket, L2 plus M, close bracket, divided by L1 plus L2 minus 2M minus capital M into open bracket L1 plus capital M, close bracket, divided by L1 plus L2 minus 2M, the whole close bracket into I. That is, V is equal to j omega, open bracket, L1 L2 plus capital M L1 minus capital M L1 minus M square divided by L1 plus L2 minus 2M, close bracket, into I. V is equal to j omega, open bracket, L1 L2 minus capital M square divided by L1 plus L2 minus 2M, close the bracket, into I. Consider this as equation 7. If capital L is the effective inductance of parallel combination, V is equal to j omega L equivalent into I. Consider this as equation 8. Comparing equation 7 and equation 8, we have L equivalent is equal to L1 L2 minus capital M square divided by L1 plus L2 minus 2M. Thank you very much for listening this lecture. For further updates, kindly subscribe this channel. If you like this video, means you can share this video to your friends.